So both my 5th graders and my 4th graders are sewing and doing fabric art. So make sure that you are in the correct area and using only the 4th grade tools, which look like this. Before we get out our felt hearts, we need to thread the needle. In your sewing kit bucket, you will have the following. You will need maybe some sewing scissors and your yellow felt, which has 3 needles on it, and it should have 3 needles by the end of class, and also embroidery thread. Also, at the bottom, there's a little piece of paper folded in half that you will hear is called hot dog bun. Unwrap the yarn from the yarn holder and pull it to reach your chin. Cut it off, and then this is how you thread your needle. There's your needle, there's your hot dog threader. So the hot dog threader fits in the eye of the needle like that. But what you're going to have to do is take the thread, place it inside the hot dog bun, pull it so there's no thread coming out the end, pinch it really tight, and then thread it through the eye of your needle. Pinch it while you're pulling so it doesn't get loose. On the other end, make a U shape, make a 0 or an O, and that tail gets tucked into the O loop and pull. That's your 1 knot. We need a double knot. So you're going to have to do the same thing again. Make a U shape, make a loop or an O, get that tail inside the loop, and pull slowly so the second knot catches right on top of that first knot. If you go slow enough, it's easy. Now we can talk about stitching the felt. Now some people cut a small heart and 2 large hearts. Some people only cut 2 large hearts. The first directions are for people that cut small hearts. You will be sewing on your small heart on 1 large heart using a running stitch. This is what a running stitch looks like. Notice how it's only stitched to 1 large heart. The other large heart will be whip stitched, which we will learn how to do next. So if you do have a small heart, place it on top of one of your large hearts, and here we go. So because you have a small heart, you're going to sew it onto 1 large heart using something called a running stitch. So your needle's threaded. You're going to hold your needle and push it through from the back to the front through both the large and the small heart. Pull all the way until the knot stops at the back. Think of the knot like an anchor. You're going to make your stitches about that far apart, and always put your thread and your needle in the side that your thread is coming out. So it's coming out the back, so I put the needle in the back and pull from the front. It's coming out the front, put the needle in the front and pull it. Don't wrap around and sew. The same side where the thread is coming out. Are you done sewing your small heart, or did you run out of thread? Well, watch this on how to get a new piece of thread and keep going.
When you come to a place where your thread is about as long as your hand, it's time to get new thread. But you can't just cut the thread and get new thread. It will come unraveled. You need to tie a knot. Do that by sliding your needle underneath your last stitch, pull, Turn your needle around and go inside the loop. Here's a little story I like to tell to help myself remember. This is an airplane. It's picking up a passenger. The airplane leaves the airport and oh my goodness, we forgot a passenger. Do a U-turn in the air, swing back around and pick up Captain Loop. That's your passenger, or is he a captain? That could be a problem. Who's flying this plane? Now that I'm finished, go ahead and cut the thread off, remove the old thread from the needle, and re-thread your needle to restart.
Oops, did your thread fall out of the needle? Well, just watch this.
The reason I pinch the eye is so that the thread doesn't fall out. If the thread does fall out of my needle, it's an easy fix. I just grab my needle threader, put my thread inside, slide it through the eye of the needle, and I have my needle threaded again, and I'm back on track. If it does keep sliding out, you could always tie a knot to anchor the needle to the thread. You can tie a knot the same way you did at the end of the thread, but do a single knot. That way, it's easy for you to get the knot out when you are finished stitching.
Do you only have 2 large hearts? Well, you're going to sew them together using something called a whip stitch, which looks like this.
And I'm ready to stitch. Pick up your needle and you'll want to pinch it by the eye as you find the back side of the fabric. Push the needle through, move your hand to the front and pull the needle through, making sure to pinch the eye as you do, and pulling it until the knot, which is like an anchor, stops it. I'm going to be doing something called a whip stitch. A whip stitch goes around the fabric. Notice how my needle always comes up. Notice how I'm making sure that the needle goes through both pieces of fabric because my goal is to stitch the 2 pieces of fabric together. All right, now I can resume doing the whip stitch, going around both pieces of fabric, making sure my needle goes through both pieces of fabric. When you get to a corner, you don't have to stop. You just simply rotate the fabric and continue stitching. That will connect both pieces of fabric at the corner. If you're creating something that's going to be stuffed, like a pillow or a stuffy, you'll want to make sure that your stitches are even and close together. Any large stitches or any big gaps could cause stuffing to come out. So make sure to keep...
Uh-oh, is it cleanup time? You have to cut the needle off the thread and return it back to the yellow felt where you got it. Please make sure that there's 3 needles in the yellow felt at the end of art and put them in the felt like this. Make sure your hot dog buns are in there, check the floor, that's usually where they end up, and then return your sewing kit bin back to the supply area. Next week, we will keep sewing some more.